1996. Nintendo launches the Nintendo 64, and right away, everything about it looked wrong. First, the cartridges. While Sony and everyone else had moved to CDs, cheaper to produce, way more storage, Nintendo said, nope, we're sticking with cartridges. And the reason? Nintendo was terrified of piracy. Compact discs were incredibly easy to copy. Cartridges weren't. So Nintendo chose security over everything else. But cartridges were expensive to manufacture, which meant the games cost more, which meant developers had to charge more, which meant a lot of game studios started leaving Nintendo and going to PlayStation instead. It was a mass exodus. The industry was literally moving away from Nintendo in real time. Second, the controller. Have you ever actually looked at a Nintendo 64 controller? Because it looks like something designed by someone who had never seen a human hand before. It had 3 handles. 3, not 2. 3, you were supposed to grab it in a different way depending on which game you were playing. Some games you'd use the left handle and the center. Others you'd use the center and the right. It made zero sense to anyone seeing it for the first time. And then there was the joystick, the analog stick. Now, this is actually historically important because the Nintendo 64 was one of the first consoles to have a real analog joystick for 3D movement. Revolutionary concept. But the execution was brutal. That joystick wore down incredibly fast, like embarrassingly fast. After a few months of regular use, the rubber coating would completely deteriorate. The stick would become loose, unresponsive, basically useless. And Nintendo didn't really have a great solution for it. You'd just buy a new controller or learn to live with a broken joystick. And the thing is, almost everyone who owned a Nintendo 64 eventually had a broken joystick. You didn't really truly own a Nintendo 64 until your joystick had fallen apart at least once. It was a shared experience across an entire generation of gamers. So let's recap. Expensive cartridges, developers leaving. The PlayStation was already dominating the market. Every single sign pointed to the Nintendo 64 being a failure. But then Nintendo released the games. Mario 64, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, GoldenEye, Mario Kart 64. One after another, game after game, the Nintendo 64 released titles that weren't just good, they were defining. They literally invented how we play 3D games today. Mario 64 created the blueprint for every 3D platformer that came after. Ocarina of Time is still considered one of the greatest games ever made. GoldenEye basically created the multiplayer shooter genre on consoles. The Nintendo 64 sold over 33 million units worldwide. And despite every single thing working against it, despite the broken joysticks and the expensive cartridges and the 3-pronged controller, it left a legacy that PlayStation, for all its commercial success, simply couldn't match. Sometimes being stubborn isn't a weakness. Sometimes it's the only reason you survive.